morning, and welcome to Mast Appeal, the Saturday morning show on Catholic radio where you can get some free and friendly advice from a Catholic perspective. This is Coleen Kelly Mast, your hostess each week, and I'm a life coach, an author, and a speaker, and I've been here on Catholic radio for 26 years now, offering free, friendly advice from a Catholic perspective. I have a master's degree in health education and teaching certificates in health science, physical education, and theology, and an honorary doctorate degree in humane letters. You can go learn more about my work, the books that I've written, Sex Respect, Love and Life, Love Ed, video discussion series for parents with younger kids, as well as my speaking and my life coaching at my website, respect4u.com, respect4u.com. You can contact me through there as well. And today's show is the 4th of July, and it is a pre-recorded show. And so I'm not going to give out the phone number. You cannot call in today, but it's a fresh new show, not a repeat show, and it's going to be pretty exciting. So I hope you stay tuned here with us. The regular listeners know that we always have some interesting guests that give you free, friendly advice from a Catholic perspective as well on the shows when we pre-record something. So we've got hopefully a great lineup today, and I know that you're interested in many of these things. We have Linda Carl, the author of a new book called Yoga Unveiled, and you know how many calls we get about yoga. You know, is it just an exercise? Is it a spiritual exercise? Is it a physical exercise? And so we're going to speak with her, a book called Yoga Unveiled, and she was involved in yoga already. All right, and then we're going to have Dr. Matthew Meehan of Hillsdale College with his new book that's perfect for the 4th of July here, The American Book of Fables. I have skimmed through every one of its almost 300 pages. It's illustrated, it's fun, it's good for every age group to read. American Book of Fables, which is perfect now for our 250th anniversary. Then another thing of interest here, remember last month we spoke about Saint Hildegard Bingen, and there is a brand new book out from Sophia Institute Press that draws from some of St. Hildegard's work. It's called Herbs That Heal, and it's Catholic home remedies to forage and grow. And I know there are weeds in my yard that I should be foraging and turning into medicine, but I don't know how to do that. So I'm looking forward to that interview with Steve Cunningham about herbs that heal. And then we might even have, we can get her, the author of a brand new book about Padre Pio's American daughter, whose own cause for canonization has just been opened. So we have some exciting things, and who knows what else is going to happen. But don't call in today, but stay tuned and listen to our 4th of July special version of Mast Appeal. This is Coleen Kelly Mast. You can learn more about my work at my website, respect4u.com. But I do want to open up with some beautiful words of St. John Paul II that are so appropriate for this holiday weekend. And some people don't even remember what holiday this is. This is Independence Day, not just the 4th of July, but Independence Day, that we celebrate America's independence from England when it was celebrating not only free speech, but freedom of religion. And back when St. John Paul II visited Philadelphia and said Mass, the homily at Mass in Philadelphia on October 3rd, 1979. Some of you might be old enough to have heard it, some of you not. In his first visit to the United States, he spoke about so many appropriate topics for today. So that's what I want to begin with to inspire us today about Independence Day and our liberty. So St. John Paul II, in his homily in Philadelphia, in his first visit to the United States, spoke about the Liberty Bell. And he said, the Liberty Bell proudly bears the words of the Bible, proclaim liberty throughout the land. And the Pope or Saint quoted Leviticus chapter 25, verse 10. So a Bible verse is on the Liberty Bell right there. That's a good start. He said, this tradition poses for all future generations of America a noble challenge: one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I know so many of you are still working toward that. So St. John Paul II said, as citizens, what we have to do, he says, you must strive to preserve these human values to understand them better, and to define their consequences for the whole community. And, he says, as a worthy contribution to the world. So we don't need to just, sit back and take it, whatever's going on. We are to still pursue liberty and truth in our country with our political patriotism and activism. So he continues, he says, as Christians, you must strengthen these human values and complement them by confronting them with the gospel message so that you may discover their deeper meaning and thus assume more fully your duties and obligations toward your fellow human beings with whom you are bound in a common destiny. So St. John Paul II, in his homily when he first visited the United States, spoke of the Liberty Bell. He said when the Liberty Bell rang for the first time in 1776, which is what we're celebrating today here on the 4th of July, Independence Day, he said it was to announce the freedom of your nation, the beginning of the pursuit of a common destiny, independent of any outside coercion. We're fighting for that today still. He said, this principle of freedom is paramount in the political and social order. However, man's life is also lived in another order of reality. You know what that's going to be. In the order of his relationship to what is objectively true and morally good. Christ himself linked freedom with the knowledge of truth. And you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free. He quoted there from the book of John, Gospel of John, chapter 8, verse 32. St. Peter, in his first letter, that's 1 Peter 2:16, says, live as free men, but do not use your freedom for malice. You get it? This applies today. What Pope John Paul II said to us back in Philadelphia in let's see, what year was that? 1979, when he had his first visit to the U.S. This is something that applies to us very much today. Do not use your freedom for malice. So many people today are trying to use their freedom and doing harm. I'll say disobeying all 10 commandments. So he warned us of that. He said, no freedom can exist when it goes against man in what he is, or against man in his relationship to others and to God. So rules that have been made that we know are against the dignity of the human person and against God, those are things we need to keep fighting for our freedom. So St. John Paul II said, freedom can therefore never be construed without relation to the truth as revealed by Jesus Christ and proposed by his church, nor can it be seen as a pretext for moral anarchy, for every moral order must remain linked to truth. Okay, remember this with our nationalism, our patriotism, our political activism. And finally, he says, the cohesion of freedom and ethics has consequences for the pursuit of the common good in society and for the national independence which the Liberty Bell announced 2 centuries ago. So that's St. John Paul II at his first Mass in Philadelphia, October 3rd, 1979, speaking about the Liberty Bell and the liberty we are celebrating for 250 years, particularly this weekend of Independence Day. So remember those challenges that we need to continue to seek freedom that is rooted in truth and not allow false freedoms or freedoms that are not linked to truth, freedoms that are even linked to evil sometimes today, to continue to seek justice in our world with whatever opportunities you have, whether it's writing letters or standing up against things or running for local offices and doing what you can do to make good and true liberty come true. This is Coleen Kelly Mast, and you're listening to Mast Appeal, the Saturday morning show on Catholic Radio, where you can get free, friendly advice from a Catholic perspective. And today we're going to get free, friendly advice from some wonderful, interesting authors. Our first guest is going to be Linda Carl, and she's going to speak about Yoga Unveiled. Dan Burke, the president of the Villa Institute, which many of you might know of, or maybe even know him, says yoga has hidden dangers that cry out for exposure. It masquerades as a fitness and stress relief routine that overshadows its deeper spiritual and philosophical roots in Eastern traditions. In this incisive book that we're going to talk about right after the break, Linda Carl masterfully exposes the spiritual dangers of yoga, demonstrating through her own experiences why yoga is incompatible with our Catholic faith. I know you want to hear that. So don't give us a call. Just listen up. We've got some wonderful guests planned here today. We're going to go to our break, and we'll be back to talk to Linda Carl, author of Yoga Unveiled, right after this message. Good morning. Welcome to Mast Appeal on our Independence Day weekend show. This is Coleen Kelly Mast, your hostess each week here on Mast Appeal, where we offer free, friendly advice from a Catholic perspective. But today, don't call in. We have some guests here today. This is a pre-recorded show, and I know you're eager to hear from our first guest that I just mentioned, Linda Carl, who's recently written newly released book from Sophia Institute Press, Yoga Unveiled. And Linda is a former yoga instructor and Reiki master. She's been married for almost 40 years, has 2 children and 1 grandchild, and she's now deeply involved in her faith and the pro-life movement. And she has shared her testimony through writing and speaking at Legatus chapters. Those of you that belong to Legatus might have seen her before. The Women of Grace forums. I know we have many Women of Grace fans as listeners. And the Catholic Information Center in Washington. So for 20 years, Linda Carl lived and breathed yoga. She taught it, she practiced it, she promoted it. She truly believed she was helping people find peace through it. And then after a terrifying event, her mind began to change about it. And I want to hear about that terrifying event too. A spiritual awakening followed that shattered her assumptions, exposed the hidden forces behind yoga's serene facade, and ultimately led her back to God. So we have on the line here Linda Carl, author of Yoga Unveiled. Linda, are you still here with me?
I am here. I'm so delighted to be with you, Coleen. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thanks for taking the time to talk to us. Our listeners are very interested. That some of them take yoga class right now. Some of them have yoga class at their parish. Some of the yoga classes are sponsored by Catholic nuns. This question has come up over and over again. And we talk about it being just exercise, and you're saying it's not so. So what was your motivation, first of all, behind writing this book, Yoga Unveiled?
Right. So for almost 20 years, as you said, I was deeply in the world of yoga and hugely supporting it, promoting it. And when I came to learn the truth of what it was, I had to share it. You know, it's so interesting that you said about nuns and parishes. I taught for my children's parish school and I taught for our parish. And towards the end, when I would get like a queasy feeling in my stomach, I would go to daily mass and go to teach my yoga class. I knew something was off, so I brought it to priests in confession, and then I knew it wasn't right, so I brought it to my pastor, who, God bless him, all he said, he listened to everything, all of my concerns, and, you know, what was going on in my life, and he said, Linda, just keep praying, you'll know what to do. He didn't have a hard and fast answer, so I wrote it not only for people in the church to know, but I also wrote it for the clergy. Because I think it's really so important that our priests and our bishops know what's behind yoga. And you mentioned that nuns do it. In one of my talks, the bishop of the area got up and said that there were nuns who were doing a retreat in a chapel, and they were doing yoga during their retreat, and they actually, in the end, ended up moving the tabernacle to make room for the yoga mats. And it's such a perfect illustration of what happened.
Whoa.
We moved God out of the way for our beloved yoga. And that's why I wrote the book.
Oh, my goodness. Because, over the last 20 years in our country, when you were involved in yoga as well, it has, maybe more than that. It has become part of the culture, and people don't realize what Eastern underpinnings it has, because there are exercise classes that really aren't even yoga. They don't even do yoga poses, but they call it yoga because the word yoga is so popular and it draws people. Even if it's just a stretching class, they're calling it yoga now. So yoga has crossed the line to exceptional acceptance, I would say, here in this free country of the USA. So that's interesting. You wrote it for lay and clergy, and we do have plenty of clergy that listen to the show. I get notes from priests and bishops regularly that listen. So I'm glad that this book is for them as well, because then they can give their people some guidance. So how did you learn of yoga's dangers, and how did you untangle yourself from this unseen web or take off the veil?
Yeah. So it was not an easy task, I have to say. So for several years, towards the end of my teaching, as I mentioned, I wasn't feeling great when I would go teach, especially at a yoga studio that had images of deities. But it was the Lord. I knew something was off, and I begged and pleaded for him through prayer to make it crystal clear to me. And I really got to the end of my rope, and I sat down and I said, okay, Lord, I'm going to open up this Bible, and wherever my fingers land is really what I would like you to tell me about yoga, and I will listen to you. And so I opened my book randomly. My fingers landed on 1 Corinthians chapter 10, which is all about idolatry. And among the first words that my eyes took in was, therefore, my beloved, avoid idolatry.
Oh.
Do not be like the pagans who drink the cup of the Lord and the cup of demons. And so I knew, through the Lord, I knew that yoga was no good. So I quit my yoga cold turkey. But when I say that it took me a while to untangle myself from the web, it really took several years before I fully understood what I was involved in. So many of my yoga classes would start with something called Surya Namaskar, which is a sun salutation. So sun salutation seems okay. It's a flowing movement. It gets your, body warmed up for stretching, or so to speak, or yoga, really. And so I learned that Siri is the god of the sun. So namaskar means to worship. So the sun salutation is a form of worshiping this Hindu god. And so then I started to learn about the very, very, very many things that I would do in a class that were Hindu-based. Hindu philosophies, Hindu religion, Hindu coming from Hindu scripture. So then it took years of research to really begin to uncover what the deeper meanings of yoga is, which I outline, in my book. So there's a lot of hidden meaning, and there's a lot of hidden worship, and unfortunately, people don't know and understand. And, you're right, yoga is such a word that's used so mainstream today. Yoga mats, yoga blocks, yoga pants,
clothes,
right? Yoga clothes, right? Exactly. And so I say just call it exercise mat. But if something, we talk about in our church, names have meanings. The name of Jesus, every knee should bend, right? So yoga's name also has meaning. Yoga is a Sanskrit word that means to yoke, but the intention is to yoke to Hindu gods, namely Brahman, their top Hindu god. So we as Catholics or Christians, we yoke to Jesus, right? We know his burden is easy, his yoke is light, and his burden is easy. And that's really what we should be striving to do, as opposed to this Eastern spirituality that does not align with our Christian spirituality. And in my book, I provide a comparison chart of the difference between the two. And once you start to see them, especially if you do yoga and you think it's okay, you'll start to understand where the danger lies.
Okay, so what about people who say their yoga teacher it's called yoga, but they're just stretching and exercising, and they aren't doing, worship to different gods as far as they can tell? Is there, just because they call it yoga, is every position worshiping a false god? Is just the name yoga wrong? Help these people discern a little bit what to do if they're already going to a yoga class and it's not super spiritual.
So I taught yoga in a gym, and it was not super spiritual, although it was yoga, and there were some things that were yoga incorporated in the class, and that's where I saw the devil.
Ooh.
So, right. So that, the fact that it feels like just stretching. If it's called yoga, it's yoga. There will be yoga components. And we like to dumb things down. We like to make them seem what we want them to be. Mm-hmm. But anything yoga is not good. Just stretching is wonderful. We should stretch our bodies. We right. should take care of them. But I would say look for alternatives. There has to be something better. You're just entering into a zone where you're calling on, just by virtue of the name, you're bringing in spiritual entities that are not of God. It's funny you mentioned, I was recently talking to someone who was telling her friend who was going to yoga class, it's really not good, you shouldn't do it. And she said, well, Father so-and-so does it, and he's in the class. So I said, yeah, and I was Catholic, and I was an extraordinary minister, and I had many Catholics in my class, and when I quit, they said, why? I can't understand it, and they still do practice yoga. So I'm excited for them to read my book, but it's the sin of scandal, right? They see other people doing it, and they think it's okay. And that's really, again, back to your first question, the main reason I wrote the book is because people just don't know.
They don't know.
They don't understand.
Yeah. Now, that chart you're referring to, is that one, you probably don't know the page numbers because your manuscript wasn't numbered like the book, but on page 74, where it has the chakra, the body location, the element, the color, the emotion, and then the Hindu deity that's attached to the emotion that position's trying to drum up in you. Is that the chart you're speaking of?
No, that's on the chakras, which I include for anybody who's deeply involved in yoga and wants to fully understand, what chakras and Reiki are, because I was deeply involved in those two things. The chart that I'm talking about is towards the end. It's in the final chapter, and it gives beliefs, like, so, what the gods are, what the beliefs are, the prayer methods, the meditation methods. And that's towards the very end of the book. And I think it's a couple of pages.
Found it. Page 141, Yoga and Catholicism Comparison Chart. Yeah. Okay. Exactly. So it says the goal of yoga is oneness with the universe. The goal of Catholicism is oneness with God. The focus and source of strength, and this is obvious, I think, to anybody who takes yoga or is familiar with Hinduism at all. The focus is self or internal, because people people that I speak to that will kind of make fun of it and say it's like navel gazing, like always into yourself. And the source of strength in Catholicism is God, which is external, not inside of us. And so the place of origin being yoga being India, Catholicism being Judah. And so there are clergy in yoga, gurus, yogis, and Brahmins. Wow, and followers are yogis, Hindus, and Buddhists, rather than Catholicism being Christian. Wow, very, very interesting. Okay, hang on till after the break. I have a few more questions. We are speaking here to Linda Carl, the author of a newly released book called Yoga Unveiled. She's written for lay people and clergy so that we can see the truth behind yoga that Linda Carl lived and breathed and practiced for 20 years, and God revealed to her the misleading philosophies that have been woven into American culture. We'll be back with more of Mast Appeal in just a moment. Good morning. Welcome to Mast Appeal, the Saturday morning show on Catholic Radio, where you can get some free and friendly advice from a Catholic perspective. Today's a pre-recorded show, brand new pre-recorded show you've never heard before, special here for our Independence Day weekend on the actual 4th of July. This is Coleen, Kelly Mast. I'm your hostess each week here on Mast Appeal. I'm a life coach, an author, a speaker, the author of Sex Respect, newly revised, coming up soon, A Love and Life, a Christian sexual morality guide for teens, and Love Ed, the new video discussion series for parents with smaller children, how to teach them at home, how to use those teachable moments and prepare your children for true love. You can get more information about Love Ed or about my life coaching or sex respect or love and life at my website, respect4u.com, respect4u.com. And here today on Mast Appeal, I'm not giving out the phone number because you can't call in. We've got guests here in a pre-recorded show for Independence Day, and we've been speaking with Linda Carl, the author of a new book called Yoga Unveiled. And I know you're going to want to get a copy of this, and you're going to want to learn all this, bring it to your Bible study group, or bring it to your workplace, or bring it home to your wife who's at yoga class right now. Hand it to your pastor or your bishop. We hope sales go skyrocket after this. But Linda, for years, lived and breathed yoga. And she drew from years of research, personal experience, scripture, and the word of Hindu teachers themselves. And she reveals in her book how yoga's postures, mantras, breathing practices, and meditative techniques are not neutral. They're acts of devotion to other gods. And she aims to show even why yoga as an exercise can open spiritual doors that Christians never meant to open. So, Linda, I want to ask you about that. First of all, breathing is something from God, and the New Age movement cannot hijack everything that's basic, like stretching and breathing. So how does someone know if a breathing exercise is to a Hindu god or not, or how their yoga exercise is if it's a stretch? Because I know some of them are named after, I don't know what they all are, but there's like a down dog and a, I don't know, serpent or spider, things like that. I know that they're named after animals. You know better than I do. So how do those like positions, or how to even a practice like breathing, how does that open a spiritual door to evil? Tell us about that.
So the first part of your question I love. How do people know that? And I think that's an important piece, because for 20 years I would do this breathing in my yoga class. It was called Ujjayi breath. And one would think, well, it's breath, it's safe, right? And so even when I left yoga, I didn't know the truth behind Ujjayi breath. And I learned that is conjuring up a serpent that through beliefs that it's believed lies at the base of their spine. So it's a kundalini energy, and the breath is attempting to awaken it so that it can come out of the crown of the head through creating enlightenment, awakening, which is really ultimately the goal of yoga. So how do people know? Chances are they don't. Through the many teacher trainings that I attended, the many yoga books that I read, I never, ever, ever knew that. So chances are people are in a class. And
even the teachers might not know that.
100%. Exactly. It's like the blind leading the blind. I was blind to what yoga was, and I was blindly leading my students to do these things that were extraordinarily dangerous, right? So, and then the second part of your question, so there are postures, and you mentioned one of them. So the line can be very confusing. What's a safe stretch and what's a yoga pose? So something called a cobra pose. You were talking about.
A snake. Yeah, I was thinking close.
Yeah. You can lay on your belly and, lift your back up, and that's a fine stretch. But if you're doing in the format of a yoga pose called cobra, that's dangerous. So in the back of my book, I have a little safe to do.
Oh, good.
And dangerous to do. So that will provide the readers with some ideas. Honestly, that could be a whole nother book. But the basic thing is if it's done in a yoga class, it's dangerous. So just don't do yoga.
Okay. So what do you think? What's the most important takeaway you want readers to walk away with after reading your book?
I just hope and pray that people's hearts, minds, and eyes are opened to what is the truth behind yoga, and that they recognize its dangers and that they no longer do it. And hopefully through my book, I explain that and lay that out and expose truths that, for 20 years I didn't even know.
So how do you, near the end of the book, I noticed, how do you point people then toward Catholicism besides the chart, which is extensive, a couple pages, and so that people can discern and what are alternatives to yoga? So what do they, like, how do you point them to the faith in your book, Yoga Unveiled, and then what are some alternatives to yoga class?
For us as Catholics, we have so many riches within our faith, right? That, we have the power of our angels and our saints. We have our sacraments, right? And there's so many protections and graces that we receive through the umbrella of the church. And I think most of us don't recognize or understand that. So there's real power. And I provide, prayer and the rosary. We're so very blessed. We have so many weapons, so to speak. And there are other alternatives to do for yoga, like there's something called Pietra Fitness, Soul Core, there's Pilates, certainly, which those are all wonderful, very similar to yoga if you like the feel and the vibe of a yoga class, but it gives you a much safer alternative, and I offer those also in the back of the book.
Okay. Yeah, I've met people that started Pietra Fitness, so that's a purely Catholic way of stretching, exercising, and praying. And so is Soul Core. Don't they pray the rosary in Soul Core during their stretches and exercises?
Yeah.
And then
it's all prayer. Yeah.
And then Pilates is neutral. So it
Correct.
doesn't have any religion to it. It's different stretchings that are hard, too, when you hold yourself up in that V position. Boy, your gut hurts. I've taken a Pilates class before. So those are wonderful recommendations. Those of you out there listening that go to a yoga class or host a yoga class at your parish, you'll want to be in touch with the people that started Pietra Fitness and maybe become an affiliate of it, or Soul Core, because you can be trained as leaders, exercise leaders in Pilates, Soul Core, Pietra Fitness, or anything else that is good. Any final words here before the music starts playing, Linda, for our wishes for this book?
Oh, well, listen, I would love the church to make a final statement on yoga. I think there's a lot of bishops and priests who have placed warnings, but there's a lot who practice it, right? So I just hope it converts many hearts and minds.
Oh my goodness, you're right. Yes, maybe they will make a statement on it, and your research will help them, and your experience will help them see that. So thank you so much. We've been speaking here with Linda Carl, the author of Yoga Unveiled, published by Sophia Institute Press. I know you want a copy. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Linda. God bless you in your work and spreading the truth. Good morning and welcome back to Mast Appeal, the Saturday morning live show on Catholic Radio, where you can get some free and friendly advice from a Catholic perspective. This is Coleen Kelly Mast. I'm an author, a speaker, and a life coach, usually offering free, friendly advice when you call in. But today we have a pre-recorded show special for our Independence Day weekend. That 4th of July actually falls on a Saturday. We let Eric, our engineer, take off today. I'm taking off today, but we have a brand new show you've never heard before. And our next guest is so appropriate for the celebration of our country's 250th anniversary of freedom. I started off the hour with St. John Paul II's words when he was in Philadelphia looking at the Liberty Bell. And now we have this wonderful book we're going to talk about here, an American Book of Fables. So I've invited the author of that, Dr. Matt Meehan, to come join us this morning. He's a Hillsdale College faculty member, and he's releasing his newest book, The American Book of Fables, just released like a couple of weeks ago. It's long. It's 395 pages, illustrated. I've seen every page already. I didn't read them all, but I skimmed a lot of them because it's so much fun to read, to look at. You will love this book, The American Book of Fables, from Sophia Institute Press. And it honors America's 250th anniversary with poetry, fables, witty, wise sayings that feature the Declaration of Independence. We've got some history there, presidents, geography, wildlife of all things. So the book is so exciting. I just finished it this morning, and it's absolutely beautiful. And if you want to read the longer stories, you can sit and read when you have time to read. If you want to just read a couple poems or quotes, every part of the country is celebrated in this book, The American Book of Fables. So I introduce to you Dr. Matt Meehan, who is a Associate Dean and Associate Professor of Government at the Van Andel Graduate School of Government at Hillsdale College, Washington, D.C. campus, and he's just told me he also taught at the Heights. He also teaches undergraduates in the Washington Hillsdale Internship Program, and he's the best-selling author of 2 other children's books, The Handsome Little Singette and Mr. Meehan's Mildly Amusing Mythical Mammals. So we have an extremely talented guest here, Dr. Matt Meehan. Are you here with us now?
I am.
Okay, thank you. I usually give pretty enthusiastic introductions if I'm excited about your book. So this beautifully illustrated book, no matter how old, if you want to read it to a 5-year-old or 3-year-old, they're going to be interested. But if you're 85 years old you can still see, you'll be interested in it. So you can celebrate Independence Day with it, Labor Day, American history. And the blend is beautiful. So how did you blend this classical storytelling traditions with this new, distinct American voice for the nation's 250th anniversary? It was very clever. How'd you do that?
A lot of research, a lot of preparation, a lot of hard work, a sabbatical, NEH grant, traveling with my illustrator across the country, learning from local history and local wildlife and ecology and park rangers, and then years of practice. But also, I have all my degrees come from my alma mater, the University of Dallas, and UD, Catholic University in Dallas, Texas, is a wonderful place because it's a kind of core curriculum where you have to study across all of the different disciplines. And that's also true of their master's and their PhD program, which is very rare. So I got to think about philosophy, theology, politics, civics, history, literature, poetry, art, and all of those things kind of rattling around in your brain and getting more and more organized as you study started to lead me to want to do something like this, a sort of something old, something new, something red, white, and blue for our semi-quincentennial, our 250th birthday.
It's amazing. You did a great job. Now I understand how you were able to do this. If you had to take a whole sabbatical and travel the country with your amazing illustrator and this, so you were in every part of the country. That's why the book is divided up into geographical locations. So you highlight regions from the Florida Keys to Glacier National Park. So how did your travels shape these little stories and sense of place when you're adding these rhymes and stories and pieces of the Declaration of Independence? How did your travels shape those stories?
Yeah, I wanted the American Book of Fables to be a kind of gratitude engine, right? Like sort of loving the history, the people, the founders, those who settled the country, but also God and his providence for giving this gorgeous land to our people. I wanted that, but I needed to sort of go and fall in love with America again myself, because I love the country. I'm a U.S. history teacher and a civics teacher. I've done all this kind of work my whole professional life, but I really, traveling to Glacier National, to Yellowstone, to Yosemite, to the Great Sequoia, being chased by crocodiles. Do you know we have saltwater crocodiles down in the Everglades? I didn't. I learned that when I went down there at night with a headlamp. Kayaking with manatees, which gave me sort of the background for my lead character, Hugh the manatee. Hugh Manatee journeys across the country.
Oh, I didn't get that when I was reading it. Hugh Manatee.
A walking, talking dad joke.
Hugh and the last name Manatee. I get it now. I didn't pick that up the first time through. So many clever things in there.
Yeah, there's a million Easter eggs in here. Pun intended. There's Christ hides and pops up all over the place, and God's provident care for his people, and that we're a child of God. these are some of the themes that are quietly laced in. I refer to the book as a kind of proto-evangelium,
It
right? We talk
is.
about casting the seed of the gospel on good soil, but that begs the question, how do you get good soil? And I think actually one of the things that we Catholics need to do a better job of is prepping the ground for grace in our neighbor who does not yet share our faith. And so this
Yes.
book is a kind of proto-evangelium. It's wonderful for Catholics. It's wonderful for the whole family. You're going to, learn about virtue and history and courage and optimism and hope and providence and our founding fathers and the principles of the Declaration of Independence. But it's also just a kind of book for the whole nation that you can give as a gift to your neighbor, and it'll, I think, help unify the country by basically giving a kind of shared love of the country and of a virtuous and happy life.
That's exactly what I was thinking as I was reading it, Matt, that for a gift to, maybe people who maybe don't have faith but want to stimulate their love of their country, fall in love with America again, because if people have been watching the news for the last 10 years or so, they're not in love with America anymore. But if they want to fall in love with America again, they want to celebrate this 250th anniversary, what happens is as you read these stories and read these poems, you will learn moral formation, you will learn virtue. So you can give it to someone. I was just thinking of my neighbor who's away from the church. I did invite him back last week, or to relatives that are away from the faith, because it's a patriotic book, like people that were in the service but maybe left the faith. It brings out the patriotism in them. So this book introduces us. This book, we're talking about the American Book of Fables. You want to order it right now, actually. The American Book of Fables, Sophia Institute Press, by Dr. Matt Meehan. And it introduces people to the American Revolution. So if you know young people you want to read it to or give it to for a graduation gift that didn't learn their American history well, it introduces them to the founding fathers, the virtues behind our independence, why it's important to pair history with moral formation in this way. So it's time for our break, but I have a few more questions here for Dr. Matt Meehan, the author of the American Book of Fables. Maybe you can tell us a little more about why it was important to pair history with moral formation and how we can use this as a pro-evangelium. And we'll be right back to talk a little bit more about the American Book of Fables right after this message. Good morning and welcome already to our last segment of our first hour of Mast Appeal Independence Day show. It's a pre-recorded show, so I'm not giving out the phone number. This is Coleen Kelly Mast, author, speaker, and life coach. You can learn more about my work at my website, respect4u.com, respect4u.com. If you need life coaching, if you need books for parents with young kids, or you need books for your teenagers that help teach family life education from a positive Catholic perspective, go ahead to my website, letter u.com. Right now, I'm so excited to get to our guest again, because over the break, he was saying something that I wanted you all to hear. We're speaking now with Dr. Matt Meehan of Hillsdale College on his new book, The American Book of Fables, and he said it's a magnum opus. He said nothing has been done like this in 300 years. Just elaborate on that a little bit, Matt. What do you mean by that? That this book, the American Book of Fables, there's nothing like it.
The fable tradition was designed for self-government and for Christian leadership. And American citizens are meant to be citizen leaders, right? We're all supposed to vote and have civic service and sit on juries. Like, we have to be leaders and leaderly, all of us as citizens. And the fable tradition hasn't been updated since Lestrange and Caxton, the old dusty, musty versions of these kinds of moral puzzles that are designed to train up the moral imagination such that they become witty, wise citizens who can really shift for themselves, but not just be citizens, also be just good men and women. That tradition hasn't been really touched or adapted or developed or moved forward in 300 years. And that's what I've spent many, many years, decades, kind of building to do. And this book is a kind of magnum opus, a major work for America that hopefully lasts another 250 years until some other bright-eyed, bushy-tailed writer tries to outdo me. But that's the point. It's designed to re-gift that kind of wit and wisdom of a self-governing Christian man or woman. And that's a big lift, and I've spent a lot of time preparing for it. And I said that offline because I didn't want to sound so haughty, but that is what I've been trying to do.
I'm going to promote it for you then. No, this is so exciting because this can change everybody's attitude toward the country. It can reignite patriotism. I'm already thinking of 10 of them. Like anybody I know is going to graduate next year from high school or college, give it as a gift, Father's Day gift, Christmas gifts, because this is going to uplift people about their patriotism and their moral virtues at the same time. So let's go back to this.
It's a family book too.
Yes, yes.
Sections for littles, for middles, and sections for bigs. So the entire family, adults, middle grade and high school readers, little kids. There's rhymes and poems and fables, but it's also all the way up through like some pretty awesome Animal Farm-like Socratic dialogues for the adults. A bright sixth grader can read the whole thing probably. But it's meant for the whole family to enjoy parts and in whole.
Beautiful. So this humanity is it's Hugh, Hugh, a guy named Hugh Manatee. His journey across the country in this book, the readers encounter wildlife and themes like friendship and justice. And, what inspired this character and what do you hope readers learn from this adventure of Hugh Manatee traveling through the country?
So each chapter, the 13 chapters, go to a different region of the country and feature a line or a paragraph or sometimes just a word from the Declaration of Independence. And so as the book walks through the Declaration, there are those rhymes, fables, and stories and primary sources that explain that part of the Declaration using the local history, local wildlife, and places and geography of that region. So I start in the Everglades in chapter 1 with Hugh the manatee, and they're in the middle of a big hurricane that's coming, just like when they signed the Declaration of Independence. So a Congress of manatees gathered to decide what to do about the big storm, the war that's coming, right, for the Americans in the Revolution. But then they wind up saying, you go get help. So if we survive, you can bring a cleanup crew to help us. But if we don't survive, you can travel the country teaching the manatees tough but gentle ways. But Hugh Manatee is a kind of joke, right?
Yeah.
Our Declaration is about natural rights, nature and nature's God, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which is to say we have to have a very robust understanding of what humanity, human nature is all about. And so Hugh winds up traveling and meeting a host of merry creatures and friends, Cuddy the cuddly porcupine who always wants a hug, which is a kind of image of how you have to sacrifice for friendship. You got to hug the porcupine. And there's all kinds of different creatures, but the whole time it's sort of an interplay between the American story and humanity and human nature, that's the trick, is how do we as Americans take care of each other's natural rights and live according to our human nature, the way God intended.
This is so beautiful because there are all these deep human messages of human dignity, of human understanding amidst a book that is not only beautiful, but teaches history and patriotism. So to work through that, to see these nursery rhymes, fables, as you say, that any age can read or hear and be entertained by it. At the same time, we're learning these lessons, which makes this book more human than any because it touches both levels where our mind and our imagination are working. So this fosters love of country. So what do you hope readers come away with here before the music starts playing, Matt? Well, it started playing already. I hope they come away with a better understanding. Go ahead. You got 20 seconds.
I hope they come away with a love of country, a love of their fellow man, and a love of a provident God that is gratitude for the rest of their life to help them do their duty and live well.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for being with us. This is Dr. Matt Meehan, author of a new book, The American Book of Fables. You'll want to buy them in bulk and give them out as gifts to everyone.